about in his book, which is Black exceptionalism, which is something that I hope we all agree on. I hope we have some sort of concept of what that might mean or some appreciation for this idea. And he literally gave a whole blueprint about Black exceptionalism and what makes us exceptional, why we are not to be messed with, why we are unique, why there's nobody else on earth like us. And I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. I think this is I was reading through it today and I said, man, everybody's gonna love this. They're gonna be so excited about this. And quick housekeeping notes. Don't forget the All Black National Convention. Speaking of Black excellence, that's going to be October 25th to the 27th in Lombard, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. And we're almost out of tickets, just so you know. We usually sell out every year. That's because we're not trying to have 50,000 people there. We actually like a good 700. That's the most we can really be comfortable with. And so if you want to get a pass, you may want to get it in advance. There won't be anything at the door. So it's not like you'll be able to walk up and buy a pass at the door. And so for those of you that do money in the morning, when we do our financial consciousness training, which is our free class we do every single day, you can actually get your pass at a discount this week. I think Thursday or Friday and Saturday, the team is going to send out links to discount passes. They only have 50 that they can sell for general admission, 50 for VIP, and I think 10 for President Circle. And the President Circle is a little more intimate. That's where you get a chance to sit and talk with me and stuff like that in a smaller group setting. So it's up to you to decide if you'd like to participate in that. So anyway, all right. So I hope we're all doing well, and I'm going to say hi to you. I'm in the chat in a minute. I'm just trying to get everything together, and I want to see who is here. Let me see who's here today. I see Royal Calhoun and James Keller. Calvin McWilliams says they not like us. They sure not. Justin Pender, good to see you, my friend. Fannie Wilson from Columbia, South Carolina. Cassandra Winborn. Hello, hello, hello. Also, Amani's in the chat. Amani is on our team. And so if you have any questions about anything going on in the Black Business School, you want to talk about the Black Investors Championship, as you guys know, that's happening right now, the Black Investors Cup. And I'm going to announce the leaderboard at the end of the week. Or anything else, anything that you want to do in terms of educating your kids on economics, feel free to talk to Amani. She is part of our support team, and they really value you. They're very good at what they do, and they've all been here for several years. Pretty much supporting the cause and helping us to become extra Black and extra smart. Because being financially intelligent, that's acting Black, in my opinion. That's called acting Black. All right, so let's get started here. Let's go ahead and begin this discussion. Okay, so here's what Dr. Anderson wrote about. We're reading Dr. Claud Anderson's book. It's called The Black History Reader. I've been switching sections a little bit because I want us to read stuff that I think is appropriate for the tone and the conversations that we're already having. A lot of us are having conversations about the politics of America and reparations, things like that. So I'm going to read some of this to you. And so let me pull this up. All right. So what Dr. Anderson talks about, and I believe he's going to dig into the reparations conversation a little bit, is he talks about Black exceptionalism and just what that looks like, why you're exceptional, why you should not let other people lump you in to everybody else's stuff. And this is on page 186 of the book, The Black History Reader. The book can be found at powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. And also, just so you guys know, another little note I want to mention is later on, I'm going to do some conversations about NVIDIA stock. And I explained actually a short video explaining why I did not buy NVIDIA. I'm not buying any more of it. I own it because I bought it cheap. I think it could be overpriced, and I think it's very, very risky. Everybody's been talking about NVIDIA. So it was on my mind because my son came in and asked me about it. And I explained to him why the stock price went down, even though they exceeded the earnings expectation. That's a whole stock market conversation. So just kind of be ready for that. Make sure you're on the text list, and I can send that to you. If you're interested in stocks, just text the word stock to the number 87948. Text stock to 87948. Yeah, Darlene, did it crash? I don't know if you call that a crash. At the very least, it's a correction. So there is some stuff to unpack there. And then second of all, I wanted to also, Tyler Perry said something interesting. And I wanted to kind of address that. I'll probably address that tomorrow morning, the economics of Tyler Perry. in Money in the Morning. So if you want to join our morning class, also text the word morning to the number 87948. So there's different lists based on what you're interested in. So text the word morning to 87948 if you'd like to join our economic elevation class, which is 7 days a week, every morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Bring your whole family. That's all I ask. You don't have to pay money, just pay attention, because I want you to be tight on your economics. And then the NVIDIA stuff, I'll send you a link on that stuff as well. All right, so here is page 186 in the book, The Black History Reader by Dr. Claud Anderson, and he talks about Black exceptionalism, and he asks this interesting question. This is question 65. He says, is Black exceptionalism the unused key to Black self-empowerment? Have you not tapped into your exceptionalism when it comes to getting what you want? I think that there is this myth that there's something wrong with us, that we are perhaps disabled, or that we should be lumped in with all the misfits of society. Anybody who's not a white male, I vehemently disagree with that. I don't think there's anything. I don't think we're broken. I think that we just, or maybe some of us have been broken by society, but I think that we are exceptional in a lot of ways because of what we've gone through and how that built us into who we are. So here's what Dr. Anderson says. He says, Blackness has had special importance and impact in America and the world. For centuries, the American public and politicians in particular have proclaimed that America's democratic values, freedoms, and immigration policies make it an exceptional nation among societies, and is therefore due special recognition, respect, and an elevated status over all other nations. Exceptional means something that is different, unique, rare, unusual, and remarkable. In the case of a group, it means that the members have been treated in an uncommon manner from all others. So he's saying that you are, pay attention now, he said unique, rare, unusual, and remarkable, and that you've been treated differently from everyone else. So give me a yes or no if you agree that no one else in this country has been treated the way Black people have. Give me a yes if you agree with me that we have had a unique experience in America, that we've been sort of dealt with in a way that no one else has been dealt with, that Black Americans are being treated differently from immigrants or LGBT people or anyone else. Give me a yes if you agree with that basic idea that we are treated differently from everyone else. Let's start there. Okay, so this is what his Black exceptionalism concept is built upon. So here's what else Dr. Anderson says. He says, what group of people in America, in nearly every respect, have been viewed and treated in a more egregious manner than Black Americans? Black Americans are an exceptional people in this nation in many ways. It is time for Black Americans to demand compensation, recognition, appreciation, and respect for what their exceptionality created in America. Because of Black exceptionality, it is an affront and disrespectful for this nation and the Black overclass, the Black overclass, the Black overclass. Those are all those people that are telling you who to vote for and what to do with your money and what to do with your life. The Black overclass, y'all know who they are. You can pick whoever you want. The Black overclass, it is disrespectful for them and the rest of the nation to continue relegating Black Americans to broad and ambiguous groupings such as, pay attention to these keywords. These are keywords Dr. Anderson's using. Minorities, poor people, people of color, diversity, disadvantaged, and multicultural. So he's saying that the use of these terms dilutes and waters down your exceptionality. It waters you down. You're taking Whitney Houston and you're making her become part of a music group where she's a backup singer. Whitney Houston should not be anybody's backup singer. Whitney Houston should be a lead singer. Okay, and this is kind of what he's saying, is that you are unique. When people try to say, oh, well, you're not a white male, so we're going to lump you in with gay trans people. We're going to lump you in with every immigrant. We're going to lump you in with white women and let them get to the front of the line and put you at the back. There's a problem with that. And it shows itself in a lot of statistical outcomes in terms of who gets the most opportunities, who gets to eat first. You eat last because you let everybody else sit at your table. That's what he's basically saying. So he says here, inclusion into those categories not only denies Blacks recognition for their achievements, it gives the misleading impression that all categories of class minorities, immigrants, native Indians, gays, transsexuals, and women that they were all enslaved, denied free land and wealth, lynched, castrated, denied to benefit from their own labor, denied human rights and love, and were maltreated as Black Americans. That's what they're saying when they just lump you in and say, oh, well, you're Black, go in the back with all the other misfits. They're pretty much saying that they went through the same thing you went through, and we know that this is not true. He says they were not. None of those groups have been treated like black people. Blacks are very special people. This is page 187. 187 on an undercover cop. Remember that? I just had to say that because 187 hip hop. I like rap. I've always been into hip. That's why it bothers me so much when people think that they say you hate rap, you hate rappers, you don't know what you're talking about. Whenever I critique hip hop, I always have some fool that comes in the chat and says that, and I'm like, you big dummy, I know rap better than you. That's why I critique it because I want it to get better. Y'all, they took rap and made it stanky. Rap was supposed to be beautiful. Rap was supposed to be wonderful. Rap was supposed to elevate us, and they turned it into something that just started to stink, like rotten eggs and nasty, like nasty curdled milk, and then just had you out here looking crazy. That's what I'm mad about. I love rap. I love rap. Let me keep on. Black exceptionalism is the missing factor needed to ignite a movement to change the bottom rung status of blacks. A fundamental premise of my powernomics concepts. Hold on. Why am I coughing? I need water. Hold on. Whenever I start coughing, somebody in the chat says, okay, doc, just take your time. Get some water, doc. So I'm going to take my time. All right. So it says here, a fundamental premise of my powernomics concepts urges blacks to build group self-sufficiency and competitiveness upon its advantages and exceptionalities. Powernomics principles are the best hope that black Americans have to survive and prosper in America. However, the window of opportunity is very small and closing quickly. In my book, Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America, I correctly project that when compared to other population classes, blacks would be a permanent underclass. He predicted this by 2013. By 2013. So on page 187 of the book, the Black History Reader, Dr. Claud Anderson, when he wrote this book, said that by 2013, black people would become a permanent underclass. Now, I'm trying to remember. I keep forgetting. Is 2013 the future or the past? I can't remember. Have we already passed 2013? Because when you get older, you like remember when the year 2000 was way off in the future because Prince would sing about it like we're gonna party like it's 1999, and you couldn't even imagine it. I can't remember 20. It was 11 years. Thank you, Kendall. I thank you. I forgot. Sometimes I forget. So 2013 is a long time ago. So according to what Dr. Anderson says, there is a segment of the black community, not all black people, because I know Kendall Green, I know his wife, and they're not an underclass. They've been investing. Their children are not part of an underclass because they did a good job. They raised their kids and they raised them well. But the majority of our people, according to Dr. Anderson, might be stuck. I don't know. I all I do know is that the labor market has changed. AI is here. A lot of people don't even know about AI. And so this is going to be interesting. Underclass status is measured by a group standing on social discomfort indicators such as measures of health, employment, poverty, income, wealth, education, criminalization, and business ownership. So pay attention. So this is how Dr. Anderson measures whether you're an underclass. You can write this down if you want to. This is good. So that when you figure out like, okay, how are black people doing? You can look at health, physical and mental health. Okay, since integration, are we doing better or worse in terms of physical and mental health? What do y'all think? Better or worse? Better or worse? And then let's move to employment. Are we doing better or worse than we were in the past? What do you think? I think employment is almost even though. I think we have a lot of black jobs. I think that most people that want work can find work. White people will always be happy to have black people working for them. I think that there's space for that. However, here's what's interesting. I was listening to an economist speak today on a financial show, and he said something very interesting. He said that for the first time, he said for the longest time, politicians would never admit something that most economists know, that excessive amounts of immigration, and Dr. Anderson's talked about this, that excessive amounts of immigration undermines wage growth, that your wages, part of the reason that American wages have not gone up. And what they'll do is they'll tell you inflation's getting better. Well, part of the reason it's getting better is because wages aren't going up. Well, why aren't they going up? Well, because you're adding 10, 20, 30 million people to the workforce. So you got more people competing for jobs. So inflation going down, or better yet, it doesn't actually go. So inflation doesn't go away. You don't actually have deflation. You have disinflation. Inflation's always there, but it's slowing down. So it's like a car moving down the road. It doesn't stop. It's just not going as fast as it was before. Do you understand there's a difference there? That's different from the car stopping and turning around. The inflation car does not turn around. It goes in one direction, but sometimes it goes faster than others. So basically when they tell you, hey, hooray, everybody, inflation is under control. Well, a big indicator of that is how much employers are having to pay you to do your black job. So what they're partly saying is, yeah, your wages aren't going up because we don't have to pay you as much because now we've got a bunch of new people in the workforce that are going to compete for your job. Now you can do with that as you want. There's different arguments, right? It does help national productivity. It does help GDP. But just because GDP goes up, that doesn't mean that wealth is going up for everybody. So if you are in that working class, which a lot of us are, I don't think that this economy works in your favor. This is not a poor man's economy. This is not a working man or working woman's economy. This is a rich person's economy. And that's why I want you to invest, because I need you to do what rich people do. If you're a stockholder, yes, you're gonna do very well. You're gonna keep making money. They're never gonna stop helping rich people make money. But if you are, say, somebody who doesn't invest and you get up and you work hard and you go to work every day so you can pay off that 100,000 in student loans, you'll be stuck on that hamster wheel. And it's the running on the hamster wheel that generates the electricity that builds the wealth of rich people. That's capitalism, folks. So I hope that you will understand that, because if you don't, it can be very costly. So let me keep going here. Let's see, poverty. Okay, so he mentions poverty. I think in terms of poverty, maybe we're doing better. Okay, income. Are we doing better or worse? Like we were ranked dead last in income after integration. I think we're still dead last now. So income, we're worse or the same, right? We're not doing better. Okay. Wealth. How about wealth? Are we just is our wealth just skyrocketing and shooting through the roof, or is it going down? Education. How do you feel about education? Do you feel like our kids are just getting a pristine education in all these nice public schools in all these big cities, or do you feel like that's kind of an issue? I'd say it's an issue, and it's connected to culture, right? I think that when you're talking about broken families and then musical culture that celebrates criminality and broken families, you get a big problem. I think I read Poor LeBron. He started that school, and they said not one of the children was able to pass the state math exam in that school. And I don't think that's all LeBron's fault, though. I think he was probably doing his best, and he did actually get the school built, which we know that sometimes can take a while for some of us. But anyway, he built this school, and I think I'm sure it's a great school, but none of the kids could pass the state math exam, which you can't just put all that on the teachers. You can't put all that on the school. You also have to look at what's happening in our homes. And I think that what happens in our homes that's what we can control, and that should be a paramount concern for all of us. What else? Criminalization. Incarceration, things like that. That's another factor, and business ownership. So these are the things that Dr. Anderson says we can look at to determine our quality of life. So maybe as you go vote, whoever you vote for, you can make this list: health, employment, poverty, income, wealth, education, criminalization, and business ownership, and sort of look at these as indicators of which candidate you feel is going to benefit you the most. Personally, I don't think either one of the major candidates will do it, but it's up to you to make that decision. These data show that blacks are fixed at the bottom of every negative indicator and bear a disproportionate share of social pathologies. Underclass status is evident when, in public discourse or policy, blacks are ignored, no longer mentioned or acknowledged by name as a group. Black Americans must use their exceptionalism to change direction. They have devoted nearly 500 years to running away from blackness as a negative, but they must now turn to their exceptionality, view it as a positive, and proclaim it based upon the exceptional treatment and history they've experienced in American society. To use group exceptionalism as a positive force, it is necessary to know what makes them exceptional and distinguished from other groups in society. The following is a partial list of the ways blacks are exceptional in the U.S. You ready? This is a list. Dr. Anderson has a list. There's a lot of stuff on this list. Black people Black people in the U.S. were the first people on earth and ancestors of all mankind. 2, the first people in North America, the Folsom people and the Moors. 3, the only people enslaved by the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Supreme Court, and state Jim Crow laws. 4, the only people classified as property, 3/5 of a human being and a quote-unquote peculiar species. Five, let's see. Five, the only people made a permanent minority in underclass by the 1790 nationalization laws. Six, the only people excluded from billions of acres of free land granted to white immigrants. Seven, the only people not paid for their labor, therefore they could not acquire assets to pass to their descendants. Eight, the only people who gave free labor that, along with free Indian land, became the definition of the American dream sought by immigrants. So we were the American dream. We didn't get the American dream. We became a commodity for the American dream. Interesting. Nine, the only people for whom it was illegal to attend school or learn how to read and write. Number 10, we were the only descendants of slaves and were in America before 99% of all other people arrived. 11, the most patriotic people and fought in every major war since the nation's founding. 12, creators of music, dance, and slang copied and confiscated by every nation. 13, pawns over which the North and South fought in the 1860s American Civil War of brother against brother. 14, only people who created, and this is interesting, right? Let me go back here. 13 with the pawns, Civil War, pawns, slaves were pawns. We were enslaved people. We weren't slaves. We were enslaved people. We were pawns. And it's interesting because that idea of us being pawns to help other people win a bigger battle, a war, or even an election, that ideology still exists today. To this day, we're still pawns. To this day, the Republicans and Democrats use us as pawns just like the North and the South did. So it's not like they all show up and they trigger your trauma and they get you all getting the Holy Ghost on behalf of whatever they're trying to do. And they figure out how to use you and what you have to achieve a bigger objective that has very little to do with you. So do you see what do you get the connection here? It's interesting because the Civil War is kind of the same thing. Well, nobody really fighting trying to free no slaves. Well, nobody like, yeah, I really care about black people like that. The people in the North, Dr. Anderson, thank God for him. He was one of the few people who helped us understand that even the people in the North did not want black people up there because they were competing for jobs. Black people were getting killed for trying to take somebody's job. They made laws blocking skilled black people from getting certain jobs. You can go up there and be a carpenter or a mason, bricklayer, whatever. You can do all that stuff, or plumber. They blocked all that out. They blocked you out of the unions and blocked your grandfather and grandmother out of certain trades. So so this idea that the North and the liberals loved us is a false idea. It is simply not true, 100% not true. So Dr. Anderson is helping us to understand that. So you've always been pawns though for a bigger game. So let's keep going. And actually that leads to another thought is before I read this, one of the reasons that we do financial consciousness training every day is because consciousness allows you to have self-awareness. When you are conscious and self-aware, you no longer are easily commodified by someone's bigger agenda because you can see the agenda. Consciousness is leveling up. It's a deeper perspective. It's where you see the world in higher dimensions. And that's what we do every morning. And I said, if we're more financially conscious, then what happens is that you start to understand your economic power. When you're financially conscious, you understand the position you have in the system. Like imagine if somebody trained you to be a cog in a wheel and there's a big machine, right? And you're a little tiny bolt in one of the machines. Well, if you're not conscious, then you're just going to do what the bolt does. You're just going to sit there and just play your position. But when you become conscious, you elevate and you see the whole machine. And you say, oh, there I am. I'm the bolt in the machine. I don't want that damn job. Get me the hell up out of here. Do you understand? So really, consciousness is critical for us to really know what's going on. Consciousness maybe starts with knowledge and information. I can provide a lot of that on the economic stuff, but then it also is almost just meditative, and it's meditative in terms of really seeing the bigger picture. Consciousness is also connected to self-esteem and self-awareness, which is why Dr. Anderson's layout of the clear definition of Black exceptionality is really important, because then you will know how valuable you are. You will know how important your children are. You will know how valuable your community is. And when something's more valuable to you, you're going to invest in that. I'm an investor. I've been an investor a long time. I will never invest in a company or a business that is not valuable. or that does not have potential. So when you value something, you invest in it. When you value something, you take care of it. When you value something, you protect it. When you don't value it, you give it away. That's why we got all these poor little girls giving their bodies away, twerking on Instagram because they don't value their girls that value their bodies don't do that. Or men run around planting seeds in every girl that that looks good that walks by. And, Nick Cannon and Cam Newton, that whole conversation, like, I'm gonna just go sleep with her and her and her and her. I think a man that values himself and values his seed doesn't really think that way. He says, no, I'm the king, and as the king, I'm only going to choose the proper queen that will carry my seed. I'm not having some stripper having my baby just because she's cute. I need to make sure I vet the people that are allowed to even be part of this very important, very significant, very royal bloodline. Do you understand? So really, that self-awareness, that knowledge, that ability to see the big picture, all these things relate to consciousness, and this is why we must be conscious. So when I say woke, like when I had that, y'all saw me at InvestFest, I had the shirt on that said financially woke. For me, woke is like wide awake, like you're seeing it all. And when you're really woke about the world and you really are committed to that, you start to just see things. And unfortunately, what happens sometimes is because I try to stay as woke as I can, and I see stuff and I say, I see that and I see that and I see that. Sometimes people don't understand it. I get it. I understand that. So let's all wake up. Let's pay attention. We are exceptional, and we should demand that. You got to stand on that. You can't be letting people knock you off your perch. You got to stand on your exceptionality. So let me keep going. So he says also, we were the only people that were pawns in the Civil War. I mentioned that. Number 14, we were the only people who created, the only people who created the need for a second U.S. Constitution, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments and civil rights laws. 15, we were the only people we were only Southern labor class whose images were displayed on Confederate currency. Didn't know that. 16, only people in America who were denied the humanity of loving, nurturing, building, and protecting their own families. You weren't even allowed to nurture and love your children. And so when you see it that way, it helps us understand why we're not nurturing our children the way we should right now. For hundreds of years, we weren't allowed to do that. So it says here, reflection upon the exceptionalities listed above should lead readers to question how different the U.S. would look today if, one, blacks had been a paid labor force that cleared the land, built the roads, bridges, canals, government offices, and universities. What would have happened if you had got paid? Number two, if blacks had been members of the founding fathers, what would the nation look like if that had happened? Participating in the writing of the nation's constitution, allowed to vote, hold public office, and express a group self-interest. What would the country look like if we had done that? What would America look like today if blacks had ownership of some of the thousands of acres of free land upon which to build mega farms and ranches and extract the minerals, oil, gas, lumber, and other resources, and the opportunity to accumulate wealth from the generous land giveaways? I want you to think about whatever city you're from. Put the city that you're from in the chat. Everybody tell me what city you're from. I'm gonna read literally from the chat. Tell me, what city do y'all live in? Type the name of your city. Rep your city right quick, because I'm gonna use this as an example. Let's see here. What we got? Let me hold on. I'm opening up the chat. It's taking a minute. Sorry. Okay, I see Chi-Town. I see Dr. Vibe. I looked like I saw Toronto for you. Was that right? Kansas City, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Brooklyn for Douglas. Okay, so Douglas. Let's start with Douglas and Brooklyn. Douglas, I love Brooklyn. The black people in Brooklyn are amazing. I got to do another event there because when I went there, you guys really came out in droves, and I appreciate that so much. So imagine if you went through Brooklyn and think about all the skyscrapers you see in Brooklyn, just thousands of skyscraper buildings. Each of these buildings worth hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions for some of them worth billions of dollars. Imagine if black people owned like 13% of those buildings. Imagine if like one in every 10 or one in every 8, 9, or 10 buildings you saw that was like 80 stories high, you could say, oh yeah, that's owned by a black family, or another black family owns that building, or a conglomerate with investors from the black community bought that building. Like that's the kind of world we would live in if we weren't locked out of economic opportunities. But I dare you, you go to a big city like Chicago or New York, and there's thousands of skyscrapers. You're gonna have a hard time finding one that's owned by black people. One out of 10,000. 5,000, whatever the number is. And I think that's atrocious. That's appalling. That pisses me off. That makes me angry. And again, that's another thing that consciousness does. Consciousness doesn't, it takes you from just seeing the world as it is to seeing the world as it could have been. And then also consciousness allows you to see the world as it could be if you make certain decisions. So you literally can time travel, mind travel to different dimensions. You can travel through space and time and see things in various ways. So I don't really see what's happening around me very much. I'm seeing 20 years in the future. I'm seeing the what ifs all the way across the board. So the big what if is that if you didn't have hundreds of years of slavery, Jim Crow, and oppression, if you didn't have hundreds of years of wealth extracted and stolen from the Black community, if you did not have hundreds of years of consistent, horrific abuse and disregard and disdain for Black people, the world would look very, very different. And I think that we should fight for that world. When Dr. King had that dream of unfortunately they weakened his dream. They watered it down to that whole thing about little white girls and little Black boys holding hands. I ain't never wanted to hold hands with a white girl. No disrespect. If you're white, I don't hate you. I just like Black women the most. I want to hold hands with my wife. And my dream is much bigger than that. And my dream is not holding hands with a white woman. My dream is us owning what we really should own. My dream was when I went to the Black Business Conference this weekend and saw thousands of Black business owners, hundreds of CEOs. They had dozens of African delegations forming deliberate connections to do tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of business with Black-owned businesses. My dream was InvestFest, where I went over there and saw thousands of young people sitting there listening to information about everything from trading stocks to buying real estate to starting a business. That's the dream I have. That's what I want to see. Because if we double and triple down on that and really commit to that, taking back our stuff, we got to take back our stuff. If we commit to taking back our stuff, I think that we will have a future that is incredibly bright. And not only should we do it, we have to do it. You have to do it, because if you don't do it, then your kids are going to end up in slavery just like you. Our grandkids will be in slavery just like I don't want anybody going through what I went through. It was really hard to get by. It was really hard to figure out how to get a couple of nickels to rub together. It was really hard to be in a workplace where it was so toxic that it affected my mental health. Why do you think I never worked for anybody? I never went to corporate America. I got my dream job. You talk about Black jobs. I got a real good Black job when I was in college. Let me tell you what happened. I got a job, an internship with GE Aircraft Engines, because I told you I was the top Black student on campus. I had the highest grade point average. So I got everything I applied for. So I applied for this internship because it paid the most money. I needed money. And they put me in this super nice apartment in Boston. And I worked for the General Electric Aircraft Engines division in Lynn, Massachusetts. That was a great summer. I had a lot of fun, but I absolutely hated that fucking job. Excuse my French. I'm not going to cuss anymore, but I hated that job with a passion. It was terrible. It was boring. I didn't relate to anybody. My boss was a racist. Her name was Mary Perna. I'll never forget this terrible lady. And it was just a bad experience all the way around. I remember walking away saying, man, is this it? Is this what I've been fighting for? It's gotta be better than this. And so once I understood wealth, and then I started to explore how certain other people live when they built the legacy, when they do the investing, when they have the discipline, when they prepare for the future, I said, oh, that's the American dream over there. You see, you was pointing me over to this stupid corporate job and white women or whatever the hell you think that was supposed to be my dream, or BET. Like that's supposed to be the American dream, like becoming a famous rapper or something so you can get shot in the face in front of your kids. No, that's not a dream. None of that's a dream. The American dream, in my view, is financial security. The American dream is peace. The American dream is freedom. The American dream is for me to be able to provide for my family and to be a proud man to knowing that my wife can depend on me, and to know that I can simply just be a happy human being. That, the American dream for me is being physically and mentally healthy. The American dream for me is being able to be proud and black and hang out with other black people without being scared. Being a bug-eyed slave, like, y'all, they gonna find out the black folks is talking. I can't hang out with the black people. I kid you not, when I told y'all when I went to Syracuse University, there was a black woman that got hired who told me that she deliberately avoided spending too much time with the other black people because she didn't want to get in trouble. I'm like, we're not in the third grade. This is not kindergarten, lady. Like, what are you talking? Like, what do you mean get in trouble? We're in our 30s at the time. Well, who's gonna get us? But that was what she told me, and I was like, this is the Twilight Zone. This is crazy to me. They got us scared to be honest. They got us scared to be real about who we are. Ain't nothing wrong with you loving yourself. Ain't nothing wrong with you loving other black folks. Ain't nothing wrong with you being pro-black. Nothing's wrong with that. There's something wrong with them. Anybody who defines you as being bad, dangerous, or disruptive because you're pro-black family, pro-black community, you want to fix the problems and you're committed to that. There's nothing wrong with you. There's something that is wrong with them. They're the crazy ones. They're the ones who become so attached to a dysfunctional, jacked up reality that when you give them a dose of honesty and truth, they don't know what to do with that. Well, Dr. Boyce is dangerous. What did Dr. Boyce ain't no dangerous, man. I ain't out here hurting nobody. If you see me, I'll give you a hug. I'll shake your hand. If you're hungry, I'll feed you. What the hell makes me dangerous? What am I doing that's dangerous? I get it. I'm chopping up your bullshit false reality with some honesty, and I'm a pretty smart guy, so I know the difference between real shit and bullshit. And you don't like it. That's your problem. That's what makes me dangerous. But I'm not a dangerous man. A lot of y'all met me. You know I ain't dangerous. I think I'm a nice guy. I'll smile at you a lot. I smile a lot. I'm friendly. So why do we have this weird world where, like, oh, well, I can't say that I'm on Instagram, and why? That's insanity. So I don't think we have to submit and commit to a ridiculous reality. I don't think we have to submit to that. I think that you can dream a little bit, and I encourage you to dream hard. Dream strong, dream as a free man, free woman. Have those dreams of freedom, whatever that looks like for you. Have that dream and commit to it, and don't be scared. Don't let anybody knock you off of that. Let me keep going. Let me keep reading. All right. All right. So we're on page 189 of Dr. Claud Anderson's book. I hope that you will support him. Every black child should be reading his books. His website is powernomics.com, by the way. And this book is called The Black History Reader. And you won't find this in any public school anywhere because he's another one of those dangerous Negroes. Dangerous guy. All right. So here's what Dr. Anderson says. He says, reflection upon the exceptionalities listed above should lead readers to question how different the U.S. would look. And we talked about what would the world look like if we had been paid? What would the world look like if we had been among the founding fathers? What would the world look like if we had ownership of the thousands of acres of free land that was given to other people where they built oil and gas and lumber empires, etc.? What would the world look like if we'd been allowed to economically benefit from our inventions, our music, our dances, our culture, and our communities? What if hip hop belonged to us? What would that look like? It would be amazing, right? Because hip hop is this $1 trillion industry that's owned by a bunch of people who can't even rap. That doesn't make any sense. Number 5. What would the world look like if blacks had received the land, money, and tribal membership mandated in the 1866 Indian treaties? What about that? Y'all know about that? You don't know about that. Cody Ransom came in. Cody Ransom is in Greenwood, the Greenwood section of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He knows all about that. He knows about all that land and property that was given to Native Americans and that black people were supposed to get a big chunk of that. He knows that we were supposed to get a lot of the special benefits that were given to other groups, and that not only did the colonizers block black folks out of that, but even some of the Native American tribes, some of these tribes that you're taught that are your allies or whatever, they block black folks out. Right. So you don't really have any friends, and they create narratives that make you think you have friends. Well, my thing is, like, if you're my friend, why aren't you sharing your wealth? If you're really my friend, then you're going to give me my piece of the pie. If you lock me out and have me out here starving, you ain't really my friend. So anyway, let me keep going. Number 6, what if black people, what would the world look like if black ownership rights had been preserved to land in Florida according to the Adams-Onis Treaty? That's another one. We haven't read about that yet, but we are going to get to that. That's another treaty where apparently we are supposed to have a big chunk of the land in Florida too. What if blacks had received the $50 million stolen by whites from the Freedmen's Bank? So there was a Freedmen's Bank where they put money in there that was supposed to be for y'all. Somebody took all that money and nobody knows where it went. The exceptionality of Black Americans is their best, but so far unused pathway to socioeconomic competitiveness, independence, and self-sufficiency. So since we just got finished talking about that treaty, let me read to you what this treaty was. The treaty that involved Florida. Oof, there's a lot here. Oof. Okay, all right, let's keep going. All right, the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819 was a treaty between the U.S. and Spain that sold the Spanish territory of Florida to the United States. The treaty also settled the fights that the two countries had long waged over slavery and the rights awarded to black people who settled in Florida. Some black settlers had always been free, and others had escaped from slavery. For 300 years, Spain had claimed the Florida territory that stretched from the Atlantic Ocean along the Gulf Coast to mid-Texas. During that period, the Spanish government and the Catholic Church proclaimed Florida to be a haven for free blacks and runaways who escaped southern plantations to become Spanish citizens. Spain's offer of citizenship included physical protection and free land for blacks accepting Catholicism. After a number of costly military conflicts, Spain fell on hard times and by 1819 agreed to sell Florida to the U.S. for a mere 5 cents an acre or approximately $15 million. The sale was formalized in the Adams-Onis Treaty signed by Secretary of State John Quincy Adams and ratified by the Senate in 1821. The terms of the sale should have protected blacks who were made U.S. citizens by the treaty. So they were Spanish citizens. They were made U.S. citizens. How many of y'all knew this? How many of y'all let's pause. Yes or no? How many of y'all learned any of this in school? Anybody learn about this stuff in school? Did they tell you this specific stuff? I'm looking for one yes. I see nope. Monica says nope. Jama, April, hell no from Jean Trey. I'm looking for one. I need just like I'm looking for one. I don't see one yes. One yes. Now do you kind of understand why I can't get fired up about fighting for like public schools? I can't do that because they lie to us and they don't tell us anything. Like, I think we should be educating our own kids. I want our kids to be like Caden. I told you I saw about Caden. I saw Caden at InvestFest and he was 14 and he just finished high school at 14 and he's already a millionaire because his parents really did what most parents should do, which is embraced him and really loved him and taught him in a nurturing space so he could be his best. I'm in that camp. But again, I'm not criticizing anybody's choices. I just think that these schools are just not that great, and that's what I believe. I think you're a commodity. Your kid makes somebody else money, and that's why they want them there. All right, so let me keep going. But no disrespect to all the teachers I know you're doing your best. But we know what the system does. It doesn't give you the ability to really do what I think you need to do. If I could raise a couple $100 million, I swear I would totally like start a bunch of schools across the country and hire a bunch of black teachers who love black children and pay you as well as I could to allow you to be the intervener in the lives of these children. Because what these children need isn't just education. What they really need is love. They need love. Love is the glue that elevates education. It's not even just about learning the math and the science and the facts. It's about learning it from somebody who really cares about you and wants the best for you. And I believe that when you are around people that want the best for you, you bring out the best in yourself. And I only know this because I was a black boy in public schools who acted a fool, who never made good grades, who was very disruptive. But when I was around people that genuinely loved me, particularly black women, so thank you for being there for us. When I was around people that really loved me, a man who was really mentoring me properly, a woman who really nurtured and cared about me, I became a whole different person. I became the best kid ever. And I think that's true for so many of our children. I think that they feel like they're in little penitentiaries when they're going to these public schools. And so if I had my way, I would get as many of our kids out of there as I possibly could. Again, no disrespect to anybody else's approach. I know some of us can make it work, and I'm not in any way criticizing that or criticizing you as a parent. I just, in my view, that's the gold standard. So when I become a billionaire, just know one of the first things I'm going to do is start a public school. So if you have $1 billion and you want to donate to the cause, hit Amani up and tell her you want to make a donation or something. All right. So anyway, let's keep going. All right, so the sale was formalized in the Adams-Onis Treaty signed by Secretary of State John Quincy Adams. Okay, he says the terms of the sale should have protected blacks who were made U.S. citizens by the treaty, which conferred upon them ownership of the Florida land they had worked. So they were supposed to get ownership of their land. Alas, that did not happen. What a surprise. The Adams-Onis Treaty is just another instance in which whites one-sidedly benefited from circumstances and assets created by black people. The Adams-Onis Treaty expanded this nation's landmass and provided the opportunity for whites to steal land and benefits that had rightfully belonged to blacks. Whites not only stole land ownership and freedom from blacks, but also severely punished them. Treaties are the highest laws of the land and have the strength of international law when they are made between sovereign nations. The treaty stipulations required the U.S. to honor the protections and rights that the Spanish crown had granted the slaves, free blacks, and native Indians. It required the U.S. to treat people with African blood living free in Spanish Florida the same way it treated whites. The language of Article 6 of the Adams-Onis Treaty specifically bound the U.S. to these conditions, stating, quote, "The inhabitants of the territories which this Catholic Majesty cedes to the U.S. shall be admitted to the enjoyment of all privileges and immunities of citizens of the U.S." That means basically everybody who lives here gets the same rights. That's kind of what he's saying. Like, that's pretty much what it says. It is clear that the terms of the treaty guaranteed all black settlers freedom, U.S. citizenship, and rights to their Florida land. So 3 things: freedom, citizenship in the U.S., and rights to their land. Rights to their land, rights to their land. Which one do you think they took first? The rights to the land, then they took the freedom. The U.S. citizenship, you kind of got that because you were 3/5 of a person, but that's it, in a commodity. It also gave them the right to migrate to any territory owned by Spain. Did y'all know that? I didn't know that. Interesting. So they had the right to migrate to any Spanish territory. Years before the Adams-Onis Treaty, the U.S. was under great pressure from white slaveholders who wanted their runaway slaves returned. So they want, here we go, this is where they get into the greed. So they wanted their slaves back. I'm sure this is going to be part of the narrative. They also wanted the Florida land that the runaway slaves, free blacks, and native Indians owned there. So they wanted the people and they wanted their land. So there we go. Remember we were saying like the land and the freedom were the 2 things that we're going to take? That's what they're doing right now. It was estimated that black settlers owned, pay attention, that black people owned approximately 40% of the land across northern Florida. That's a lot of land. 40%. That's ours. That's ours. Where's my cut? That's ours. 40% of the land in northern Florida. Slave owners petitioned General Andrew Jackson to use his military forces to help them seize the land and the slaves. So the slave owners went to Jackson. They said, those Negroes, we want their land and we want their bodies. We want their black bodies and we want that land. And so they got Jackson to use the military to go to Florida and take it back. General Jackson, a slave owner himself, was sympathetic and obliged the slaveholders. He made several illegal military incursions into the Florida territory to capture runaways, take their land, and to destroy the black maroon towns and Seminole Indian villages that were protecting black settlers. Jackson had no military, executive, or congressional authority to invade Spanish Florida and to kill its black and Indian citizens. His actions nearly threw the U.S. into war with Spain over these incidents. The only reason Jackson's military invasions did not trigger a war at the time was that Spain was so financially weak that it preferred to sell Florida to the U.S. rather than get into another fight. Are y'all as freaked out about this as I am? I'm reading this with you. I did not know these things. This is fascinating. This is one thing that's interesting too is Spain's ability to defend itself was driven by economic problems. I think that's a profound point that I want to make to you, and I want you to understand that even in your life as an individual, your ability to defend yourself and to defend your own freedom comes down to whether or not you are financially prepared. So therefore, the fact that you live in a society that teaches you to be economically reactive instead of economically proactive pretty much opens the door for you and your children to end up in slavery. When you don't have financial security, in general, you don't have security, period. So many of us are trained from birth to live in a consistent state of financial insecurity, which opens the door for others to come in and invade territory that should belong to you. No, what does that invasion look like? No, they're not showing up and they're not killing you. They're killing you slowly, but not killing you directly. But what does that mean? Well, that means they're going to take your time. So they're going to take your freedom. You can't do what you want during the day because you're going to have to go to work. They're going to come in. They're going to get your children. Your children can't work in the family business. They're going to have to go work for, this white man over here and that white man over there, right? And then on top of that, you're just going to be in this constant state of economic anxiety. So what I want you to understand is um that this is bigger than money. Money is bigger than money. Money is not that important to me, honestly. Just today, I get people on my Instagram all the time. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, by the way, and I have another one, Dr. Boyce Money. Follow me on Instagram if you want to. And one guy, I put up a financial video today, and the guy said, "This is nice, Boyce. I'm glad you're on brand, whatever that means, right?" And I said, "I'm always on brand. Every single thing I say is on brand. It's because I'm not a finance professor who happens to be a black man. I'm a black man who happens to be a finance professor. My only interest in economics, my deep interest in economics is only driven by one thing. That economics is deeply connected to the other things that matter in our lives in terms of freedom and overall well-being. Money is a pathway to these things. That's why I care about money. I'm not trying to sit here and be rich so I can talk about how I have more money than another person. That's silly. That's for children. I believe money is important. I believe wealth is important because wealth will protect you when they come and try to invade you. And colonizers will always come and try to invade you in a capitalist society if you don't have your money right. So what you do for your kids, if you love them, is you make an economic plan. You prepare them financially. You start investing while they're young, so they have assets when they're older. So therefore, they don't end up like this, like Spain. Spain couldn't do anything. They were economically weak. So they had to give in. They had to give away people and territory and everything else. Just like it. So imagine if these citizens were kind of like their children. An entity or an individual that is not financially secure cannot defend and protect its people. So the part of the reason you cannot defend and protect your community is because we have not fully embraced the discipline required to be financially intelligent and financially prepared. Do you understand? Do you follow what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Do you see the connection here? If Spain had a different approach to its finances, they could have fought the war, defended their people, told them to fuck off. They whatever. Excuse my French. I know I cussed a lot today. I hope that please forgive me for that, but I got to be honest. They could have said, "Screw you. These are our people. We're going to fight you till the end because we've got the resources to do that." But because they had no resources, they had to bow to the crown. They had to bow to the aggressor. So in many of your homes, in many of your families, because you don't have resources, you have to bow to the aggressor. Black men can't be men the way we want to be because we didn't grow up in spaces where they taught us to be economically strong and prepared. You have to go out groveling and begging and hoping that massa will give you an opportunity. And I'm not making fun of anybody in this position. I was there too. But I believe every black man on earth should know how to start a business from the time he's a child. I think that should be a requirement for all of our boys. Same thing. I think the girls too. The girls have their own reasons to be economically independent. So this is what I'm seeing here. This is what I'm seeing. That not being prepared makes you vulnerable, and then that's when people come in and they take your stuff and they take the people around you. So you are the head of a household. You've got some stuff. You've got some people that you're protecting. You can't protect them because the money's not right. Why ain't the money right? Why don't we have a plan? Why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we understanding economic preservation as a critical element of personal and collective freedom? Freedom, influence, power, whatever you want to call it. Money is power. Money is power, and economic warfare is a very real thing. It's declared on you every single day, and it's going to be declared on your children. So make sure that they're ready. Let me keep reading here. All right, so it says, as stated earlier, after the treaty was signed in 1821, Florida became an American territory and the inhabitants became U.S. citizens. However, that did not stop General Jackson from breaking the law. He committed numerous additional reprehensible acts to aid the white slaveholders. He repeatedly used the U.S. military to capture blacks in Florida and deliver them to the slaveholders. In doing so, Jackson violated the U.S. Constitution that declared it illegal to bring slaves into the country after 1808. These intentional illegal actions on the part of Jackson and the complicity of the U.S. government, because it let those illegal acts occur, raise numerous questions. The answers to those questions create legal pathways to remedies for reparations for today's Black Americans. In the following section, I am intentionally framing detailed legal arguments that should be used to compel the U.S. government to provide reparations to Black Americans as a group. And I mentioned with reparations, it's not the government is not the only entity that owes us money. Every corporation on the planet that in the U.S. that has money needs to be contributing to this pot because we see those $1 trillion. We see Nvidia with that $2-3 trillion valuation. Apple, all these companies, you can drop a couple hundred billion into the pot too. So let's keep reading. Violations of the Adams-Onis Treaty provide a strong statutory basis for reparations that Blacks should pursue. The following legal issues arise out of Articles 4, 5, 6, and 9 of the Adams-Onis Treaty. These articles articulate the citizenship and land rights granted by Spain to all Black settlers and the rights that transferred with them upon the sale of Florida. To pursue reparations based on this treaty, Blacks must develop a comprehensive legal strategy. The first step Blacks must take is to demand that the U.S. government provide a historical investigation into each legal issue I have identified and make a formal claim. The most appropriate investigators should be the U.S. Department of the Interior and Congress. Second, the realities of history, given the realities of history, Blacks must organize their legal scholars and elected officials to monitor government progress and identify descendants of Black Spanish settlers. Third, Blacks must make restitution from the Adams-Onis Treaty a political issue and organize the masses. These facts below are some legal issues that Blacks today must demand answers to as they pursue reparations based on the Adams-Onis Treaty. 1. General Andrew Jackson and the United States accepted ownership of Florida as a new state, but ignored the numerous provisions of the treaty that Spain had made for free Blacks, runaways, and Black Seminole Indians. 2. What compensation is due to the descendants of the free Blacks in Spanish Florida that General Andrew Jackson killed or shanghaied and delivered into slavery more than a generation after 1808, the date after which the Constitution, as ratified, prohibited bringing slaves into the country? 3. Why didn't Black Spanish citizenship and land ownership convert into citizenship and ownership in the United States as required by the treaty? So why weren't the citizenship and land ownership converted over? 4. When Indians and Black settlers were removed from Florida by the U.S. government, why weren't millions of acres of Florida land owned by Black settlers and Black Seminoles held for them in accordance with the Adams-Onis Treaty? What happened to the ownership of that land? That can be traced. You can trace who owns property, right? Am I right? Yes. So on page 193 of the Black History Reader, Part 5, Dr. Anderson says, do the descendants of Black landowners still have entitlement to that Florida land? They owned the land based on Spanish decree and natural or divine law, but did not have paper documents such as deeds. 6. If the terms of the treaty are invalid, then the state of Florida still belongs to Spain. Nearly 2 centuries after the U.S. Congress signed the Adams-Onis Treaty, it is necessary to track ownership of the many Florida lands that have been owned by Black Spanish settlers whose land rights should have followed them after the U.S. purchase. If the treaty is valid, then the obligations to Black settlers must be honored. 7. What happened to the sovereignty rights of free Black settlers who had lived throughout Florida for centuries and were forced into slavery? Think about this. You've been free for centuries and they force you. I mean, that's terrible. That's horrible. And who had lived in Florida throughout Florida for centuries and were forced into slavery or were later marched along the Trail of Tears with Native Indians to the Oklahoma Territory. What happened to their land? Were the owners compensated? Were their descendants compensated? Or is that a bill still waiting to be marked, paid in full by the U.S. government? That's what Dr. Anderson's asking about. That is a lot. That is very deep. And that is where we're going to stop for today. Whew. I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of tired. I need a cigarette and I don't even smoke. If I was an alcoholic, I'd be getting a drink right now. Shoot. If I was a drug addict, I'd be hitting the pipe twice. But fortunately, I'm none of these things. So instead, I think I'm going to go kiss my wife and eat some of her delicious dinner. So with that said, we're going to meet next week for book club. If you want to get an invitation, you want to be on the list, text the word greatness to 87948. Text greatness to 87948. Couple reminders of things happening in the Black Business School. Number one, this week, Constance Carter, who owned the largest Black real estate firm in California, is doing a session. I believe that session is Thursday night. We have B1 Real Estate, and it's her mastermind, so that's going to happen this week. Also tomorrow, or sorry, scratch that. Sorry, that's going to be tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow night, Thursday, duh. And she's going to come in. So if you are on the text list, I'll send you a text about that. Also, Friday, Dr. Lene Javette, who is our Dean of Entrepreneurship, is going to do a special session called Concept to Cash Flow, where you take your ideas, turn them into a business. Dr. Javette studied Black entrepreneurs in her doctoral work. She's on the faculty. She's going to be doing that Friday. That's free. Now, the real estate event, that's part of Dr. Boyce Real Estate. The real estate event with Constance, you get a free trial in that. Just make sure you're on the list. In fact, if you want to join us tomorrow morning for financial consciousness training, those who haven't signed up, text the word morning, MORNING, to the number 87948, and I'll send you invitations to all that stuff. So text morning to 87948. Number three, we have an estate planning training that I put together in the Dr. Boyce Academy. Lifetime access will be $299 if legacy building is something that you're interested in, you want to learn estate planning. I am going to reduce the price by 48% for 48 hours for a couple days on Thursday and Friday. You'll get a text to decide if you'd like to participate in that. And then last but not least, the All Black National Convention is October 25th through the 27th. We're going to convene in Lombard, Illinois, right outside of Chicago at the Westin Hotel, and spend a couple days just being super Black and getting to know each other and connecting and having our family reunion, learning and having fun and connecting. And that's pretty much what the convention is. So if you'd like to learn more about the convention, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. All right. And the book that we read tonight is called The Black History Reader by Dr. Claud Anderson. You can get a copy at powernomics.com. He has a whole bundle pack of all of his books you can get for $99. Best $99 investment you'll ever make. So feel free to go to powernomics.com. So God bless you guys. I hope you have a great night. I'll see you all tomorrow morning for economic elevation.